Now, I did this lesson. I made an outline for us tonight, so that you'll have kind of an idea of what we want to accomplish. So my outline has 6 major parts, 5 techniques, and I don't. If we're going to have to be through by 8 in order to start our 5-minute lesson for people that just want a 5-minute lesson, it's time. We need to get going. So the first thing I wanted to do is talk about a term that I've heard Diane use before, but it wasn't really one that I had used. She's referred to some of our ancestors, and that we are able to find out more about them if we know who their fan club is. Your fan club are those people of your ancestors who were their friends, associates, and neighbors. And when we know more about their friends, associates, and neighbors, we know more about them. Maps help us visualize who and where our ancestors were. So tonight we're talking about maps. So the first map we're going to talk about tonight is on Family Search. And so I think I'm going to open up a new copy of Family Search. In this word, right on this very top line, and I understand that, and I didn't know this before, that this is a little bit different on a Apple computer. And I'm going to have to find an Apple computer someday that I can play with and learn how it is different. But on this line, one of the things is activities. And if we click on activities, and we have all kinds of games and activities and things to do, one of them is, where am I from? And if we click on it, then Family Search is going to open up to a map, and we can see our map in 4 different views: generations, family lines, our heritage, or our timeline. So if we start with generations, and down here at the bottom, it opened up to 8 generations. I'm gonna pull that little button over to where it just says 1 generation. And so it says that there's 3 people in this location in the United States back in 1 generation. And then if I go to 2 generations, it's going to give me 6 people plus my grandmother who lived in Illinois. And I can go further and get more and more people. And you can see how now I've gone over to England and Germany. But now in the Eastern United States, I have 20 in Illinois and 23 in North Carolina. And so you can see where, by adding generations, how many of the ancestors from my pedigree chart live in the different locations. If we choose family lines, then we do the same thing kind of by family. So here is my mother over here on this list, and my mother's picture is by where mine is. And so now it says that there's 2 people that live in Utah. If I click over here on my grandmother, it's going to change it to 3. I click on my grandpa, and I'm going to start going east. And every time I add another person on my family line, then it goes to where that person is from. And it keeps adding generations and adding generations. And now I'm about ready to go to Germany. Yeah, now I'm ready to go to Germany when I get back that many more generations. And so I can kind of follow in reverse my family going across the nation and then into Europe. And as each new generation is added, then it's going to give me bigger numbers and more places. The next one I think is not so much research as just interest. Choose a country to learn more about your heritage. If I want to know more about Denmark, I can click there and learn more about Denmark, and it will tell me which of my ancestors are from there, and I can follow up more information about them. The recipes they may be used, fun facts about their country, about their traditions or whatever. Then timeline is going to show us by time where families of my family lived. So in 2000 and 2000, then that's numbers of people of my family and how many lived in those locations. So by the time I was born, there were that many, fewer in the West than there were before, still fewer West. And now pretty soon it's going to start being more people in Europe than there were in the United States. So that is a way that we can, 4 ways actually, that we can follow through where our family is from by using family search. And I think that that's a good beginning way to do it. Of course, another way that we always like to do it is to go to family tree, then to fan charts, and then put birth country, and it's going to tell us where our family is from by birth country. And that's another map that we've used often. I think probably all of us have. Now I'm going to tell us a little bit again, but in maybe simpler terms, about the lesson that we had a couple of weeks ago, which was on how to use Google's My Map to find people. So if we go, before we go to Google Maps, I'm going to have us go to Google Sheets. When the brother taught us our lesson a few weeks ago, he told us that we could make My Maps work by mapping where our family had come from, or whatever else in regards to maps that we wanted in our family we wanted to do, by making an Excel spreadsheet. Now, I'm not very good at Excel spreadsheets, and I was not successful in making that work. So I have studied a little bit more, and I've broken it down a little bit more. I don't have the experience he has, and I haven't made it as useful as he had. But if you just want to kind of get started, then what you do is you go to Google, and then over here where there's all the dots, you go down and you choose Sheets. Looks like I'm going to have to pull this over even more. And Sheets is Google's online version that is similar to Excel for making a spreadsheet. So if you click on Sheets, then you can open up, you can make a new Excel spreadsheet. And so here's the one I made. And you can see it's very, very simple. So this is the beginning one to kind of give you an idea of where to start. And so I called this one Michael Migration. And on the very top row coming down, you title each column. So for my very beginning one here, I just titled it Places. So here are the places, the major ones, where the Michael family lived. They started out in Philadelphia. That's where they came from, Germany. Then they went to Wilkes County, North Carolina. Then they went to Muhlenberg County, Kentucky. Then they went to Scott, Illinois. Then Adair County, Missouri. Then Johnson County, Missouri. Then Independence, Kansas. Then Pueblo, Colorado, and Mancos, Colorado, and Provo, Utah. So that is my spreadsheet showing where my Michael family lived as they moved across the United States. So then I come and I go to My Maps by Google. And so that's the same website that we were showed before. Now I'm going to create a new map. So I click on it, and it says that the first thing I need is a layer. So I need to add a layer, and I should give it a name, I think. Now, how did I give it a name? Well, we're going to go ahead and import. We're going to go ahead and import. And now we have to choose a file to import. And the file that we are going to import is, we're going to go to Google Drive, because that's where it's going to list all of the things I've ever made in Google Drive. And so I have to go to the bottom of this list to find the one called Michael Migration. And so I'm going to click on it and then click on the blue one. And then it says, which column from your sheet do you want to use? Well, I only had one column, and that was named Places. So that's the one I want to use. I think when I get better at this, I'll probably make one for the years that they lived there, or maybe the name of who lived there. But for now, I just have Places. So I click on Places. And now here's the map of the United States. And suddenly on this map of the United States appeared the places that my ancestors have lived. Now, in order to give you a view of all of these places at once, I had to click the minus button down here to make it a smaller picture. And so here we have the places where they lived. Now I come up here to this little thing right there, look kind of like a comb, but what that is a ruler. And that's to measure the distance. But I'm not going to measure the distance as much as I'm just going to use it to show the line. And let's see, I don't think it, oh yeah, it drew the line. So I'm going to click from Philadelphia to North Carolina, and then I'm going to click to Kentucky, and then I'm going to click to Illinois, and then I'm going to click to Adair County, Missouri, and then actually, I don't want to go there. That's Warrensburg, Missouri, and so different groups of the family lived there. Did I lose it? Am I going to have to do it over? Okay, I guess I have to do it over. First, I have to find my mouse. Do you see my mouse anywhere? Okay, click on Philadelphia, click there, click Kentucky, click on Illinois, click on Missouri. Now the two branches, one went to the one dot and the other went to the other dot, but I'm going to go to this dot and then this dot. And then, so now I have a map of how my family moved from place to place across the United States. And if I had more spaces in here, I could have where they were born as well as where they died. And I could have more details to show the exact roads instead of just from spot to spot. This says that altogether it was 2,470 miles as they made the trek. Now they made that trek in the course of time from before the Revolutionary War until now. So that's a long time. But there's the map. Now, I like to use my snippet tool. So if I come, whoops, I want to stop there. So how do I stop there? I guess I didn't learn it all yet. To use my snippet tool, I come down here to my little snippet, and that's the last thing I snipped. I want something new. So I click new, and the way the snippet tool works is it turns it all pale, and then you hold your mouse button down and draw that across. And so then I would go to File, Save As, and I would give it a new name. And the new name I would give it is Michael Migration. And this is going to save it in the documents file. I probably would take the time otherwise to put it in a family history document file. But now I have a map of my Michael family migration that I can keep in my files. And so that is another example of how to use the Google My Maps that we talked about before. Now let's talk about what does the house look like that your ancestors lived in? Who knows what the house looks like where their ancestors lived? Anybody? I think Angel does, but let's look up Angel's grandfather. Is Clifton B. Thatcher your grandfather?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I am not on Angel's family tree. So what I would do if I wanted to know more about, if I was looking for Angel's grandfather and she had told me his name, is I would go to tree, but then I would go to find, because I can find people even if they're not related to me. Did you know that? So I'm going to type in his name, and his name is Clifton Thatcher. And he's male. And I think that he lived in Provo, Utah. And so I think that probably he was pretty much newlywed in 1930. So I'm going to say that he lived in Provo, Utah in 1930. I would need to search for him. Probably it'd be easier to find him under his father if he was not newlywed. And so then I do find, and it gives me a bunch of options. And so when I go to this top option, Clifton Beckstead Thatcher, married to Cleo, and parents George and Sarah, that's what Angel had told me. Yeah. So I feel pretty confident that this is her grandfather. Okay, and so this is kind of what the new index card looks like sometimes. And so here's a picture of her grandpa and his details. But probably under details, it doesn't tell me where he lived. It tells me that he lived that he was born in Provo and that he died in Provo. I could kind of think that he lived in Provo. But if I go into sources, and I'm thinking that if he was a newlywed in 1930, that 1930 census would be a good place to look. So I can come down here and look at the different times of sources, and here he is listed in the 1930 census. So I'm going to click on that, and then when it opens up, I'm going to click on that source because it's the census itself that I want to look at. And I get this new screen that Family Search didn't used to have, and I don't even know what it's called. Diane, do you know what this screen's called? You'll have to unmute if you tell me.
There we go. I'm not real fond of it because it's hard to, it's like I don't know, it's kind of hard to maneuver a little bit. Maybe you like it. That
was what I thought at first. I'm warming up to it. Okay. And the reason I'm warming up to it is that it says similar records, and it is listing here a whole lot of other records that Clifton Beckstead might be in. In this case, it's listing ones that have already been attached to him. But it kind of gives me a screen where I can see his other sources at the same time I'm looking at his 1930 information. So I'm warming up to this view. But I'm going to go ahead and go to his census record in 1930. And it says down here in the bottom that he's on this page, but I want to enlarge it so I can see more about this page. Now notice I didn't see the indexed version. I just went straight to the census, which is maybe a benefit of this. Now I see that this is Provo City, and this is interesting. It says that it's in 2nd Ward. Now, most places in Utah, Utah is about the only place that's going to list wards and have them be LDS wards. But so in 1930, he lived in 2nd Ward. I think in 1940, he lived in 11th Ward. And nowadays, that same ward boundary is probably more like Pioneer Park. But I think that's interesting. Now, if we come clear over here in this far column, the title on that column is name of the street. So if we read the name of that street, it says that he lived on 1st South Street. And if we look even closer, it says that his address is 575. And we don't know if it's east or west.
It's west.
Because we know that Provo South Stake, that Provo 2nd Ward is on the west side of town, we're going to assume it's west. And we're going to try that and see what it looks like. And so we're going to write that down on that piece of paper that we always keep with us when we're doing family research. West, 100 South. And at this time, so this says that he was 20 when he got married, and he's 29 now. And so his wife is Cleo, and they have a child, Clifton Jr., and a child, Grant. Am I right to assume that later they had a child named Catherine?
No, they had a son named Cyril.
Okay.
So they had 3 boys.
Okay. No daughters.
No daughters, just boys.
Okay. So now that we have done that, and we know where he lived, and by the way, we might have also found that address in a newspaper article. We might have also just found it in county records or other land records or other sources, but it was really nice that we found it in the census. So now we go to Google Earth. And when we get to this website called Google Earth, we have to launch it. And it's going to take a minute for it to launch. And I think that this is a fun thing to do. Okay, so now that we've launched it, let's come up here to the search button and let's type in 575 West, 100 South in Provo. And it is going to do some turning around, and it is going to tell us that across the street from Pioneer Park is where this address is, 575 West, 100 South. Now, it took me a while to learn some maneuvering of Google Earth. Oops. Okay, in trying to move my pictures, I got a different view than I wanted. I'm gonna try this and see if it takes me back. It does. Now, I had never before seen this little kind of an icon that's right down here. Have you guys seen that icon before? I forget what it's called. It's called something like a tag man or something like that icon. But that is the icon that draws blue lines. So I'm going to click on it, and it is going to draw blue lines around where I have the balloon for the address of 575 West, 100 South. So now I'm going to go click on that blue line right across from my balloon. And then the map is going to change. And now I am on the street corner. And it says that I can go with the arrows down the street. And this is the corner apparently of 1st South and 6th West. But I don't want to turn. I want to stay on 100 South. So I'm going to walk down the street by clicking on these arrows. And over here, it's going to tell me about where I'm at. It says I'm still at 600 West and 1st South. But I know I'm on 1st 100 South because that's what it says here. Now it says I'm at 610.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going the wrong direction. I need to switch and go this way. Now, is that putting me closer to a 575?
Yes.
Oh, my husband thinks I need to. Which one do I need to turn? Nope, he says that's wrong.
No, that was right.
Which one do you want me to go on, Charles? This one? This one. I think that puts us back where we were. Yep. That was not the right way. So we have to practice a little bit to learn how to maneuver this. Now let's try this way. No.
Yeah.
Is that the right way?
Yes.
Okay, we're at 598. We're at 587.
Yes, no more.
We're at 587.
Yeah. And you just got to turn around, not the park. You just got to turn
Now, how do we turn around? This is Pioneer Park.
Yeah.
Pioneer Park is across the street from that address. Okay, now this is where it got tricky for me. You have to hold down the mouse button on your left-hand side and turn this and move your finger on your, scroll around. And when you scroll around, you get over to this side. Now, I think I need to use my plus button on the bottom. Looks like now I need to do some more scrolling around. Now I need to hit my plus button. I'm looking for a sign on this house that might give me an address to make sure that I'm at 575 South. Well,
You are. It's right there.
right there. Angel, is this your grandpa's house?
Yes,
Is it your house?
it is. And it's
How
an
about
old picture.
How about that? It's what?
It's old.
It is old. I figured out that by looking at my house, and my daughter's car is parked in front of it that she hasn't had for years.
That's my sad.
So,
Yeah, that car got totaled.
okay, did it? Oh dear. But that is. Oh, I want to go the other direction. I want to back out to the street again.
Mm-hmm.
But we could then say, we could look at that house and say, do you think that that house is newer than 1930? Or do you think that that's the house that Clifton lived in 1930? I think that house is old enough. It could have been lived in 1930.
It is.
Okay, let's go back out another little bit. And let's walk down the street some more. And do these houses look like your neighbors' houses?
Yes.
And what does this house look like?
That's my parents' house.
It's your parents' house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where my grandparents lived.
And your mother got to move into her parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
So if we had a picture of what this house looked like in the previous years, we would be able to say, does it still look the same? Do we think it's been torn down, or do we think that this is in fact the house that was here that many years ago? I'd say, I think it's got new siding.
Has a ramp.
Pardon?
Has a new ramp.
A new ramp. Okay, your mom needs a ramp. Okay. Isn't this fun?
Mm-hmm.
I think we should all look up our own houses and look up our grandparents' houses and see if they're there. Now, I couldn't look up my grandparents' house because they lived on a farm. And I didn't have enough of an address to be able to find where their farm was and look up their farm. But I think that this is a real exciting thing to be able to do. One of the things that's suggested is that you zoom in enough to make sure that you're at the right house, because you might be next door or across the street or something. So that is, we've just done the example of how to do finding your ancestor on Google Earth after you know their address. And we could use Google Earth. We could go back to Google Earth and do a search. And if I were to search, for example, for my ancestor's house, which I forgot to write down that address on my little piece of paper. Let's see if it's 214. Yes, it's 214 West Gay Street in Warrensburg, Missouri. And so it's going to come out on Warrensburg, Missouri. And if I look, I can see that it's close to the library, close to Johnson County Courthouse. Johnson County is a little bit away from Jackson County. It's not the same place. And I can look and see where Sunset Hill Cemetery is, and look at the city and what the city looks like. And I can look at his house. The first time I did this, it took a lot of maneuvering to be able to figure it out. But I practiced enough that I'm able to do it a little bit easier. Now I want to zoom out and go across. I think I'm going the wrong direction. Anyway, look at his house and see if I think that his house could have been the one that he lived in 1900. And I have to walk backwards, I think. This is great fun. Do it, try it and see what you can get. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is government land office records. Now, I taught a class about land records and using the government land records once before. How many of you were in that lesson about the BLM land records? None of you? Nobody's waving at me. Okay. As people moved west in the United States, the biggest source of land for them was the government of the United States, because the government of the United States believed that we should have all of the land from ocean to ocean. And so, and the government at the beginning of our country was pretty poor. So when they wanted to give a pension to Revolutionary War soldiers, they often gave it to them by giving them land. They also sold land at a very low rate in order to encourage people to move west. So if we go to the government land office records and go to this website, the Bureau of Land Management, and we kind of, think of the BLM as being who handles national monuments and grazing rights. We don't usually think of them as being the record keepers of land, but they were. So if they sold land to somebody in the United States, it was called a land patent. And how much they sold the land for varied with what Congress had most currently voted for. A lot of the time it was $1.25 an acre. And then later they passed a law in 1862 that said if you would take care of the land for 7 years, you could have it for free. So those are the kinds of records that you would find here. Now, let's look in Illinois. So I click on Illinois, and the name of my ancestor, his last name was Wade. So I'm going to click on Wade, and I'm not going to put down his first name because I want to also see if any other Wades were buying land in Illinois at the time that the United States was making them available. And he lived in Jasper County, but Crawford County and Cumberland County and Cole County were the next door counties. So I kind of am going to look at that too. So I'm going to say search, and right away it's going to start pulling up land. Now, Lorenzo Dow Wade arrived there before 1839. So I'm going to kind of hope to find somebody that bought land before 1850. So here is a John Wade, but he's in Kane County. And here's a Hamilton Wade in the wrong county, a William Wade in Crawford County. Now, Crawford County is the next door county, and William Wade is who I believe was the father of William Wade. So, but he bought it in 1853, and he didn't show up in the 1850 census. So I'm going to have to explore that later. But I mostly am coming down here looking for Jasper County people. And it looks like I need to go to the next page and come down looking for Jasper County. And now one of the things I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to look up if any of his brothers or that father or other Wades bought land in Cumberland County or in Crawford County or in Jasper County. You know what, there I am. There I'm at a Lorenzo Dow Wade in Jasper County and a Lorenzo Dow Wade. One time he's buying land with his brother and his brother-in-law, and the other time he's buying land just by himself. But I'm going to want to see what that looks like. So I'm going to click on it, and it is going to show me that he went to the land office in Palestine. And if I would look on that previous page, it would have given me the date. But if I click on this, I can see the deed that he got when he bought the land, and they're calling it a patent. And so it says that Lorenzo Dow Wade bought land, and it is going to tell me the land using the land description. And we're not too used to land descriptions. So this is how they describe the land that he bought. It's the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter of section 20 in township 7 north, in range 9 east, in the lands that were taken care of by the land office in Palestine, Illinois, and it's 40 acres big. And so I want to know more about that land. I want to know, and the land that he bought with his brother and brother-in-law, I want to know if it's in the town of Newton or if it's out there. A farm of 40 acres to me doesn't sound too big. Maybe in those days before they had tractors, maybe that was about all you could farm was 40 acres. But I would like to be able to plot that land. And so what I did was I went to BYU library and I went into the map room and I asked the librarian to help me find it. And we went to the Illinois drawers and pulled out the right map for Jasper County. And I was able to, we printed it out so I could color it with color paper. And I colored out where Lorenzo Dow bought land with one color. And then I outlined where he bought land with his brother and brother-in-law with another color. And then where his wife's maiden name was Van Dyke. So I drew a line around all of the Van Dyke lands. And so I could get an idea that it looked to me like he did some land speculation in the land of Newton, so that when Newton really became a town, that he could sell land off and have land in town, plus his land as a farmer. And so I could get a pretty good, a beginning idea of him and what he was accomplishing by having this map that I made from his patent, as well as his brother's patent, as well as his father-in-law's patent. And so I could begin to see where they lived. And as they spread out a bit, they didn't all stay in Jasper County. And so I was able to get an idea of what was going on in his life. So that was very helpful and informative to me to be able to do that. Now, we don't live in the land, in the time frame when most people go to the BYU library map room to get a map. So nowadays you can get maps from the USGS, which is Utah, United States Government Geological Survey. And if you choose Topo View Maps, you can order them. There's also a place at Utah State Government Records where you can go and get the Utah ones. I haven't learned how to do this yet. I haven't learned how to do it online. But when you want to know more about an ancestor, particularly if you've got a U.S. ancestor who's being stubborn, and we might say you've got a brick wall, this is one of the things that you're going to want to do to find out more about him. So that is how you would use a topographic map. Oh, my husband says there's videos about how to do it, but we didn't start early enough to be able to find out how to do it online. Nor did we start early enough to figure out where it is in my file system so I could pull you out the colored one that I made earlier. Now, the one other kind of lands that we haven't talked about yet are sandborne fire maps. And what happened with this is that 100 years ago, 200 years ago, there were lots of big fires that destroyed big towns. And the insurance companies had to figure out how much those properties were worth, or how much to insure a place for that hadn't been moved into yet. And so the Sanborn Company started making maps of towns, and their maps were so detailed that on a piece of property, it would not only say that there was a house there, but it would say whether or not the house was built out of brick, whether or not the house had siding on it, whether or not the house had chimneys, all of those kinds of things that would affect what the house was worth in case it burned down. And so the Sanborn fire maps really have a lot about each plot of land in a town. Now, out on the farm, they didn't insure the buildings very much, but inside the cities and larger towns, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of these maps. So if you have somebody that lives in a town and you want to follow their land, this is a good way to do it. Sometimes you can get ideas from deeds about where the land was and who owned it. And I have not used Sanborn maps because most of my family is not in big cities. But this is really a very good resource. And to learn more about Sanborn maps, I would go to Roots Tech 2021 Connect and look under sessions. And then under sessions, I would do a search for maps. And one of the maps that it's going to list is the Sanborn fire maps. And that's going to give you a good lesson on lots of details about how the Sanborn fire maps worked. So, any questions about the things I've said tonight? That's my 6 main map things I wanted to introduce you to tonight. Did anybody have any thoughts as I went through things?
Do you give any ideas of the land that we took from the American Indian? Does it go back that far?
I don't know. Well, Sanborn land maps wouldn't. Google Maps would have them because a lot of the reservation lands did not have major street names. It's going to be harder to find them. It's going to take somebody that knows the land to be able to follow through and recognize it. As I was playing around, when I looked in Mancos, Colorado, I could follow which road went to the cemetery from downtown. I didn't have an address for my grandma's house, my great-grandma's house, but I did know what street it was on, and I could follow that street along the river. I don't think that this is going to be as helpful to Native Americans, but it still might be interesting to see what you could find.
Yeah, and then the land grants in Texas that were given before Texas became a state would be interesting for me to look at, because that could be an interesting place to find.
It would be. Let's go to the government land records and see what it says under Texas. And I think it's very likely that Texas has a different set of land of records. But let's see.
Yeah, because a lot of that, allegedly Spain gave the Mexicans a lot of stuff. But I'm wondering.
What was your in-law's last name?
Well, let's throw in Gonzalez.
There's lots of Gonzaleses.
I know, and one of them has a gigantic ranch down there.
Did I spell Gonzales right?
Yeah, close.
Do you have an idea of what county? There's 254 counties in Texas.
Say Bexar County, Bexar.
Well, it looks like maybe the only records are for Jeff and Wheeler, Jeff Davis and Wheeler.
Okay.
So,
Well, that'd still be interesting to, something I've never thought about looking at, because all the land along the Rio Grande was prime land, and the king of Spain gave out land grants to prominent settlers. who
well,
are-
I think I would go to Texas to the wiki on Family Search and look under Texas and look up her land grants and see if they have a lesson there on land grants in Texas.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't want to.
It's amazing what's in the wiki.
Okay.
Nancy and John,
Yes,
you hear me?
yes,
Well, I know at least with the Navajo Nation, land is maternal. So
yes.
you live on the mother's land or the grandmother's land. And so I don't know how it is with other tribes, but I would think the tribal government, they're given their stewardship with the U.S. government. They might have records of who are stewards over what sections. I don't know, but
I think, Rick, that probably it's the Bureau of Indian Affairs that has the records.
the BIA, yeah.
And the very sad part about that is that our government has not yet acknowledged the fact that Navajos are smart enough to own their own land. And it can be leased, and you can get a 100-year lease, but you cannot get a deed to land if you're a
Right.
Navajo living on the Navajo reservation.
Right.
And that is an absolute embarrassment and shame that we would do that to our own people.
So maybe that'd help, with Native American. That's all I know. about
Yeah,
Native
but
Americans.
it does go. Everybody, if you want to live on the reservation, you live on the land where your grandma in 1869 lived.
Right.
And now they're starting to more and more lease plots for 100 years. And so those records are available someplace. But I think that's a relatively new thing. We served our mission on the Navajo reservation. Okay, any more comments? If not, Rick, I'm going to ask you to say the closing prayer, and then we're going to have our 5-minute lesson by Diane. Or Diane, would you rather wait till after your lesson for the prayer?